looks like game number 4 is ready. University of Connecticut still has to win 2 more. George Mason is on match point once again. Throwing out the Control Warrior. It is going to be Control Warrior against what looks to be some variation of Handlock.
Yeah, and this is another one of those decks. It functions very similar to Control Warrior in these late game matchups, where it's a balance of resources. Can you make sure that you're grinding your opponent out in the right sort of way? Now, what's never going to happen here is the fatigue battle from both sides of this. Either Connecticut's going to get into fatigue, and the Warrior is going to have to fight through more cards than they have, or they're just going to be able to kill every single thing that Connecticut plays, and there's no way they can actually climb back in this scenario. And so their opening hand with Twilight Drake and Mountain Giant and Dr. Boom, they have a lot of gas to start pushing through this, and it's going to be a matter of whether or not they actually can. You take a look at George Mason University's hand. Fiery War Axe, not the biggest threat in the world. Armorsmith, same deal. Bash, maybe with the 3 of those can combine to do something. Execute's really the only tool they have to fight right now.
Execute is a fantastic tool, though.
It is, but it only fights one of the minions.
Oh, well, that's a nice pickup.
That will fight a Mountain Giant pretty darn well.
I got the Handlock in my sights.
It's going to be a deadlock pretty soon.
It's going to be a deadlock.
They are playing Demon Handlock as well, so even more threats on top of this. And that is a card that George Mason University was really looking for. Acolyte of Pain will make sure that they can keep some gas going in their tank. There's really not a ton of effective ways for Handlock to answer this card. They don't really want to Dark Bomb it, I would say. I think you're happy to, but ideally you just don't want to be seeing this card in general. So if they pick up, say, Cruel Taskmaster, maybe a Whirlwind, or even can combine this with a Deathbite activation, you're looking at a lot of potential card draw to keep up with that hero power from Connecticut.
Yeah, it's a good silence target, but especially against Control Warrior, you never want to try and have that owl in your hand early on. You really want threats against a Control Warrior when you're playing Handlock. Keeping an owl in a mulligan is not something you can afford to do. We actually even saw UConn throw away an owl early on, so they're really not too worried about the Acolyte of Pain, but it is a great pickup for the Control Warrior player because, like you said, being able to draw deeper into those removal spells, be able to deal with those threats a little bit easier.
And George Mason University actually elected to not attack with their Armorsmith last turn, and so they have chosen the long battle for a very long time. And the reason that they don't want to deal this damage is because they don't want to put their opponents in Molten Giant range. When they start getting down to 10 health, 12 health, that sort of range, Molten Giants, they become 0 mana, 2 mana around that spot. And so they want to make sure the Molten Giants are expensive throughout this entire duration.
Yeah. As a Control Warrior in this matchup, you want to control the pace of the game. You want to make sure that the board is as empty as possible until you're getting to that turn where you can win. Like you said, the 2 win conditions. Kill him with a Grom, like control the pace of the game, kill him with a Grom, or really go to that super long game where you just grind the Warlock out of resources.
Yeah, and so with that non-attack, it's likely they're full committing to that grind amount of resources.
Yeah.
And even here, paying the extra life instead of using the Armorsmith, this is all a resource battle. They want to make sure they're fighting it as effectively as they possibly can.
Yep. Don't want to burn that execute too early on, especially knowing that usually the course of action when a Handlock is not on the coin is Twilight Drake turn 4, tap Mountain Giant on turn 5.
Yeah, very patient play from George Mason University. Connecticut, meanwhile, are you weary about playing this Mountain Giant? I mean, your opponent's playing. Your opponent thought an awful long time before attacking that Twilight Drake.
Yeah.
I think you just test the waters, honestly. Like, I think you're just going to give it to him. Like, you say, you know what? If you got a removal spell for it, you do have to use it now. So that's a big benefit. But they also have the Void Caller sitting on board, so that's a possibility.
Huh.
And they're even choosing to not life tap if they play the Mountain Giant, which maybe they're kind of tipped off to the fact that George Mason University even wants them to fight that super long battle. It says, you know what? We may have to balance our resources starting right now.
Yeah, that could be true. It feels like you're playing into the Warriors' plan there, too, because you want to be able to get to your Molten Giants at some point. And so tapping not only gives you that card advantage, but also allows you to get lower into those Molten Giant range. But who knows? Maybe they realize that getting that extra card is not worth it in the long run against the Warrior.
Yep, so Twilight Drake still ends up getting 2 cards for 1. Pulls off that Fire War Axe and that Bash. And now George Mason University decides to attack with the Armorsmith.
A little bit of change of plans. They said, well, if you're not going to tap, You know, I don't know. At this point, unless I could talk to these players and ask what's going on in their head, I'm not going to even try and predict.
Well, I think part of what's happened here is they've drawn 2 copies of Shield Maiden and they've drawn a Baron Geddon. So they may actually feel comfortable kind of fighting that damage battle at this point and saying, you know what, even if you have Molten Giants, we may be able to just fight through them.
Yeah, that's a sick mid-game. And since University of Connecticut didn't tap, I mean, if you're sitting in George Mason University's shoes and you say, well, they could have tapped and still played the Molten Giant, or sorry, the Mountain Giant, maybe they don't have Molten.
That's a possibility as well. But a second Mountain Giant is going to present a problem. George Mason University does not have an answer to this out. Oh, they still have the Execute in their hand. I'm sorry.
Still have that Execute.
Yeah, this will require them using the Armor Smith, and the other thing it'll do is it'll throw off this 6-mana turn. You know, normally they would have played Shield Maiden in this spot, but instead the opportunity for Execute. So they're going to save the Execute even and rely on minions to get this fight done. Which when you're at 28 and you're going even higher, it's really not that bad of a plan. Because I can tell you, if you're in Connecticut spot, you don't want to just be attacking 5/5s with a Mountain Giant. These are big threats that you want to be doing massive damage to your opponent.
Yeah, they do change their mind about halfway through and realize that maybe with the cards we have in our hand, we can afford to use that Execute. You have a lot of big threats, and I mean, they've chewed through 3 threats with limited amounts of removal so far.
This attack is going to be the big decision here. Because again, if you attack here, I feel like you're really committing to the damage. But if you don't attack, you're committing more to that long game. But again, looking at their hand, is this a long game hand? I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
And neither does George Mason University. They're going to start putting in damage and scale into this late game. But I can tell you what, UConn has got no shortage of gas in that 10-card hand of theirs.
Yeah, they're going to play threat after threat. Void Caller next turn, Molten Giant the following turn. Harrison Jones, not the best draw at this stage in the game, and this is going to be a pretty clean Baron Geddon, but those Boombots can always do some damage.
Yeah, there's always a possibility they take out this Baron Geddon. Oh! That's enough to end up putting it into big threat, though. So Mortal Coil going to finish this off. That's a big swing for UConn, though. I mean, that's the kind of swing that can win them the game.
Baron Geddon, you picked the fight with the wrong goblin. And his bots.
This town's not big enough for both of these bots.
And Baron Geddon.
And Baron Geddon.
Just,
and Draxus.
It's a medium-sized town.
Yeah. There's a few people in there.
Yeah, look at this plethora of options from University of Connecticut.
I honestly think Molten Giant is not a bad plan in this spot.
Just
I mean,
play it naked.
But here's the thing: if you play the Void Caller, there's the risk of the Jiraxis being pulled from your hand, and that's one of those long game tools that you want to have. The Mal'Ganis, obviously, it's a great target to come out of it, but do you need that to happen right now? I think just Molten Giant's fine.
Yeah.
Almost out of time.
Maybe they're going to squeeze in a life tap with it for nothing because they had 10 cards in their hand and Lotheb gets burned. Well, that's one of those spots where one guy realizes, hey, you can life tap and play the Molten Giant as well. And somebody didn't go, well, we have 10 cards in our hand, so maybe we don't want to do that.
Monkey Lamb's sitting in the back. He threw it up the chain of command. He's like, what about a tap? And they're both like, you know what? A tap sounds great.
And this is something we were talking about with, like, you know, having a leader and then having the support there. You know, people have to be keeping an order of this. You have too many opinions coming across the board. Sometimes you miss things that are very easy to not miss if you're just paying you're paying too close attention almost.
Yeah. They didn't think to assign someone the job of counting how many cards are in the hand.
Either way, they're still at 15. They have 10 cards in their hand, and they have an 8/8 on the board. The problem is their opponent has so much life at this point that they're kind of committed to fighting an attrition battle.
Yeah. And GMU just looks slightly flabbergasted right now. They're wondering what the game plan here is. They've chewed through a lot of threats, but they're running out of resources themselves. Lots of big creatures, limited amounts of removal, and limited amounts of removal can sometimes be the bane of Control Warrior when you're playing against a handlock.
Yeah, so they're going to start loading up the board in this position. This is going to mean an assault. That 8 damage, that's going upstairs.
Oh yeah.
That's a big fist.
It is. Shield Slam.
It's a great draw right now.
Pretty good time to pick that up.
That is a pretty darn close, I'd say, to one of the best draws in the deck. Brawl might have been a little bit better, but even then, with the Brawl, there's a chance that this stuff doesn't live to the board. In this way, you get an extra minion on board, you kill the Molten Giant, you run over the 3/3, and you're left with a great-looking board versus what Connecticut has to offer. Iron Beak Aldron, it's not going to do anything right now, and now suddenly they're the ones who are starting to run low on threats.
Yeah. University of Connecticut pointed that Sun for your Protector at the full health Shield Maiden, which seems to indicate that they're looking at a Hellfire play here, potentially. Play Hellfire, you followed up with something like a Void Caller.
Again, I think the situation they've been trying to avoid is using the Void Caller to avoid the Jiraxis hitting play, but I think this may be a risk they just have to take.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes Jiraxis hitting play is actually a good thing, because there's been a lot of removal expended for George Mason University.
Yeah, I'd say in most matchups the 315 body is just a big enough body to really get the job done. But against Warrior, you know, chipping away for 3 at a time is not really gonna get the job done. It's really good at fighting minion battles.
Yeah. But then again, you never know when Harrison Jones is gonna be hiding behind Magni. Say, did someone need my museum?
They both are in Ironforge.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. League of Explorers. So now GMU, Alex Straza is, I think it's a totally fine play. You know, the life, ignore the amount of life that this is changing. The fact that it's an 8/8 is the important part of this card right now.
Yeah, one Molten Giant's already been played, so the biggest swing that could happen would be something like 1 Molten Giant for 5.
Yeah. Big Game Hunter really, I think, is probably one of the biggest swings that could happen right now. But look at UConn's hand. They don't have a clean way to actually kill this Alex Straza. This is potentially problematic.
Yeah. Could be. Jiraxis could be an option here. Molten Giant as well. Tapping for that BGH, though. They're starting to get pretty deep into that deck. They have not seen a big game hunter.
If they play that Jiraxis, they're going to be very sad
oh, yeah.
about the outcome.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing, too. If you want to play the Jiraxis, does Jiraxis get the extra 2 health buff if you have Mal'Ganis in play?
No.
Okay. I was curious if it did. I actually have never seen that happen.
No, it doesn't. He doesn't get extra damage either. He does if he's on the board, but not if he's your hero.
Wow, they're just going to play Mal'Ganis.
Laying
Is
down.
that damage pointed at the face? Oh my gosh. Connecticut says, you know what? We got to end this game. And with that 4-2 taunt protecting these minions, this is actually not that bad of a game plan. This is not a brawl turn.
No.
This is not a brawl turn. As much as I would love for this to be a brawl turn. Maybe it is a brawl turn.
Okay, so even if you win the brawl with your Alex Straza, a demon's still popping out of that sucker.
I think
most likely.
The execute's just, it's so safe here. You can kill the Mal'Ganis. You leave a 3/4 on board. Sure, you use an execute on a 4/2, but the bigger story here is that you killed Mal'Ganis.
Yeah, or you can just, you know, attack into the Ancient Watcher. Armor up. Bait him into the brawl.
You know, that's a possibility as well. I mean, it is, you are at 35 and you would go to 37, so 14 damage isn't really putting you in the lethal range.
Yeah.
Still a lot of damage to take.
You just armor up pass.
Maybe taking the damage is correct. They're going to go with they're going to take the safe route here. I like this as well. You deny a ton of damage. I think you've got pretty good use out of Alex Straza. You still have Brawl in your hand, and you still have Harrison Jones as well. I mean,
the last execute going into a 4/2 that can't even attack.
That's true, but now you're left with like Doomguard, Twilight Drake, Jiraxis. Those are really the only threats left.
And Molten Giant.
And that 1 Molten Giant.
Starting to add up.
It's going to be a tough turn from UConn here.
Yeah.
Now, they're still having to worry about having to balance their resources. I feel like last turn they got good news, but good news doesn't mean, you know, forward march always.
No. Sometimes it just means stay home. That's good news for me.
Scouts.
They teach you could stay home today.
You can play more Hearthstone.
Good
then.
news. Bad news is when I have to charge forward.
Dang it. Now I
TJ,
have to
go
do
outside.
stuff.
I don't want to charge forward.
Sit outside the window and play video games.
Yeah. Gul'dan's like, can I bring my phone? When I charge forward.
Well, there's that basic last major threat. They're going to go with the taunt up here instead. And George Mason University, this brawl is about their last hope. And with the 9/9 sitting on board, I'm going to venture to say they have to go for it.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, that Molten Giant sticks there and a Demon pops out of the Void Caller. Best case scenario, Defender Vargas stays there, and Yukon was bluffing the whole time.
They're even going to add the Acolyte.
Whoa, hedging
Its
the
chances
bets.
to win the brawl. And so here we go. This is a big one if you're George Mason University.
Oh, ho, ho.
You know what? I'd still say that they're pretty satisfied with that outcome.
Yeah. Now, Jirax is going to come out, so George Mason is going to say, well, we really wish we would have gotten 7 cards, but most likely out of that Harrison Jones. But, I mean, that's more threats that they don't have to worry about.
Here's the other thing, though, is that UConn now has to start being mindful of their life total. They're at 13 right now.
13 is a sweet spot.
It is, but now they can't life tap anymore. So this is it, basically, after this. They're going to be relying on these threats to take care of the rest of the game. Now, the benefit to that, George Mason University has no way to actually take care of any of these minions.
Yeah, this is a really scary gang of dudes to go up against.
Yep, and so now it's going to be Sludge Belcher. Harrison Jones safe to play once you've seen Jiraxis on board. There's not going to be a Youthful Brewmaster in here for that Jiraxis. Nope.
Hellfire it doesn't really do much at the moment.
20 points of damage, 22 points of damage it looks like available for UConn. So probably just going to fight through these minions, push the damage they can. But once again, they have to be worried about Gromish and a way to activate it. Here's the thing. George Mason University only has 1 card in their hand. So if they have Gromish and a way to activate
in the
it,
hand since turn 4.
if they have Gromish and a way to activate it, they actually have to draw one or the other. And so I think this is a spot where you look at it and you go, you know what? If you got it, you got it.
I just think you stay at 13 for the rest of the game.
So you want to clear the whole board.
Sure.
All right, I can get behind that. I'm down for safe plays. We are not going to lose to anything, basically, if we play it safe.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, what does a Control Warrior have? They have 1 card in their hand. The Acolytes are gone. They're going to draw 1 card per turn. Unless it's Shield Block, which they're essentially drawing 1 card that turn.
They're going to have like a tsunami or an earthquake or something happen over in Connecticut for this to really be coming to the forefront.
Yeah, that microwave behind them is going to have to explode. I don't know. What do microwaves do?
They microwave food.
Yeah, that guy that keeps
Believe it or
walking
not.
behind them, he's going to have to put foil in that puppy.
Just launch it. 75 minutes seems about right for this tinfoil. Tinfoil? Who uses tinfoil anymore? Why do they say tinfoil?
There's a lot of things made out of tinfoil. I've learned the hard way with microwaves. Some things are disguised as other objects. Tinfoil disguised as paper.
When was the last time you saw anyone use tinfoil, TJ? I don't even know if they make tinfoil anymore.
They do. And it looks like that's going to be lethal. Exactly what the Doom Guard played. And University of Connecticut is going to tie up the series 2-2. We're going to a game number 5.
Yep, and this is the spot that we were talking about earlier where UConn wasn't looking so good, but now they are all smiles. And when we get this look at George Mason University, I venture to say it's going to be some unhappy looks across the board.